Welcome, dear viewers. While people are still debating whether global warming is in progress or not, there is a general consensus among scientists and researchers that global warming has started and will be increasing at an alarming rate in the near future. Today, we have with us an expert, Professor Syed Iqbal Hasnain, who is a glaciologist, and will be talking to him about global warming and its impact. We welcome you, sir. Sir, it's said that global warming is causing climate change. Is there any reality in this statement?
Global warming is causing the climate change, which has become a reality now. It's no more a fiction. But first we have to go back into the history of the climate change. And if we go back, then there is a place known as University of California, San Diego, where there was a scientist known as Keeling. He started measuring regularly the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and they put up the observatory in 1956. So first there was a little confusion how this CO2 is forming. Is say one molecule of CO2 stays about more than 1,000 years, 100 years. Is a long-lived kind of a gas. But sometime earlier it was thought that it was staying for a short period of time, and then the molecule come back and dissolved into the sea. But then they did the atmospheric chemistry, and they came to know that the signals in that CO2 in the atmosphere is having by the vehicular emissions. Because of this, it was growing in the Californian region, and they put up the observatory in the Hawaii region. The carbon dioxide concentration into the atmosphere in the geological past, say for example in the last ice ages, it was 190 and 200 ppm. But now in the 1900 it has gone up to 290 to 300, and now in 2008 and 2009 is gone to 385 ppm. So it is quite high. So it is a kind of a consensus among the global scientists that this carbon dioxide concentration is a human driven kind of a thing. It is because of the vehicular emissions, and that is why it is building up, and it is changing the weather pattern, and or the greenhouse gases which we call them, and they are raising the global temperature. So that temperature is different in different regions because there are certain regional impact, and one of the regional impact in our region is the addition of the black carbon. So the black carbon may be less in certain other regions, say in Europe, but they are there. In the Arctic region the black carbon is there, the California the black carbon is there, but the building of the black carbon is more in the China and India because of biomass burning. 70% or more than 70% of our population, whether in China or India, are using the biomass, and biomass generate the black carbon. So that is also impacting the temperature, and the aerosols which goes up into the atmosphere heated up and create a warming or a heating anomaly at the very high elevation. That's why you go to the Beijing, you see the haze. You go to Delhi, you see the haze.
Sir, some people say that global warming is just a cyclic phenomena. Deserts will become glaciers and glaciers will become deserts. How much truth is in this statement?
Yeah, it is true that this is not the first time that the glaciers melted. If you look back at the geological history of the earth, and you see that there were many other periods where the ice ages come, and then the interglacial period has come, and then again the climate change. But this time one is not realizing that is one important factor is the human factor. At that time the human was not so developed, activity was less, and even the population was much lesser. So this climate change is not a natural phenomena. It is not happening by the natural process. It is happening by the human activities, and it is 100% human-driven climate change, and that is the big change from the past. Difference between the present and the past.
So what is the impact of global warming on the glaciers?
The first impact of the climate change or the global warming is seen on the cryosphere. What we mean by the cryosphere is that glaciers, permafrost, and the seasonal snow. So all the highlands of the world were affected. Even the two poles, the Antarctica and the Arctic, also affected. But in the last 100 years, the impact was not that enormous as we are seeing in the last 10-15 years. And 20 years that the ice sheet is melting, the western Antarctic ice sheet is collapsing. Similarly, the Arctic region is which is on the sea is also melting fast. Greenland ice sheet is melting. The glaciers of the the Pamir, Hindu Kush, Himalaya, Tibetan Plateau, and the Karakoram is melting. That is where we are more concerned, because we live in this part of the world which we are started calling that the third pole. As we know that these two poles have a huge quantity of ice cover, but equally this third pole, which comprises Pamir, Hindu Kush, Himalaya, Karakoram, and Tibet, also contain a huge amount of ice cover. But the most important and the crucial aspect of this region, that it is sustaining more than 1.3 billion people for sustaining their livelihoods, for their domestic needs, for their personal needs, for agriculture needs. So that is very crucial to look back at the glacier history of the Himalaya. So as all over the world, they also started melting since the middle of the 19th century, but this shrinking or the melting of the glacier is accelerated in the last 30 years, and that's why we started monitoring. So earlier the government of India and the organizations were not much concerned, because the monsoon was coming normally and there is not much changes which is happening. So they said that okay, the glacier is not making much impact on the water availability or the water resources of the North Indian subcontinent. But recently we saw that the monsoonal pattern is also changing, and there is a total shift in the monsoon and the weakening of the monsoon, and the extreme events are increasing, as we have seen in the recent year. Earlier we have seen in Bombay and other places, even the dry regions of western India is also starting having rainfall, which traditionally were not having. So there is a total change into the pattern of the monsoon.
So are we losing these glaciers because of less accumulation or because of more heat?
Is a combination of the factor. If there is a more heat, so naturally there is not much solid precipitation, and when there is not much solid precipitation, so the mass is not increasing, and when the mass is not increasing, the glacier is not growing, is shrinking. Glaciers usually regulated by nature, so they give water when you require the water, say in the springtime. First the snow start melting, then the ice is melting, and when you don't require the water, say in the winter time, they don't give much water. So it is a kind of a resource which is naturally regulated. But what has happened in the recent year, that because of the less seasonal cover, seasonal snow coming very late into the Himalaya, and we have seen last year, I was there in the Kolhai Glacier in mid-November, there was not a single snowfall, and all water is coming by the melting of the glaciers.
So global warming is a global phenomena. What are the local factors that we can address to at our own level in order to keep it under check?
Yeah, there are two issues connected with it. One is the carbon dioxide emission, which is increasing, and some of the Indian scientists in the GB Pant Institute have measured near the glaciers of Gangotri and Dukrayani, which I was seeing a report. They are already reporting 360 ppm. So I was surprised to see that near the glacier that carbon dioxide emission has gone to that level. So we have to see that our vehicular emission has to be reduced, and you have seen that a lot of vehicular activity as the economy is growing, even in the Himalayan system, whether you go to the Ladakh region or Kashmir or Uttarakhand, anywhere you go, huge trucks are there, and number of trucks are increasing, and the fumes level of those trucks by the diesel, because they are using the diesel, are increasing, and that is also building up the black carbon into the atmosphere, and the biomass burning our rural community are using for cooking. So that we have to change those things. There's another factor is the lot of our the coal-fired power plants to develop the energy. So we have to come back to the solar energy, but say in India I see that very less use of solar energy, because we have to change to that renewable kind of energy. So our dependence on the coal-fired power plants will be less, or we increase the nuclear power plants. So China is also increasing nuclear power plants. So similarly we have to go. I think with the nuclear power plants will be going more and more in the coming years, and similarly we have to adopt to the this renewable is the hydropower or the solar power. So if we reduce the emission level by black carbon, or reduce the emission level of CO2, so that will also help in the long run to mitigate.
So you've been studying the Kolhai Glacier for long now. What do you think are the factors that are contributing to its fast depletion?
Not only the Kolhai Glacier, there are other smaller glaciers nearby to the Kolhai, and that was also affected by the human emissions. So I'm pretty sure that because of the valley, now you have many plants which are making the cement plants are there, so there is a pollution here. There is a number of vehicles have increased in the valley, so a lot of human activities increased in the valley, and that all combined factors is affecting the Kolhai Glacier, which is also in last 40 years is gone about 60% ice cover has gone out of the Kolhai Glacier. Human activity by these buckerwals and the herders, what you call in the western Leather Valley, there's a lot of human activity. They have small houses, they made it, temporary huts, but that huts has come up very close to the glaciers, and they are taking their living very close to the glacier, and large scale deforestation is also happening in this, and there is a total damage of the ecosystem of the valley. So that is also going to make impact on the ecosystem.
So Kolhai Glacier is one glacier which feeds the entire valley. How long do you think it will continue to feed the valley, and what will be its impact on the valley?
No, at this point it's very difficult how many years, but I'm seeing that how much is the seasonal snow is coming. Last year, the seasonal snow in the Leather Valley, both in the east and west, come very late in the March and April. So all has melted out, and I have seen that in the early springtime there's a lot of discharges coming, because that was not going into the formation of the glacier, because it is staying for a short period, then the temperature increased and all snow melted out. Then this small cover, there is a Kolhai Glacier, there are smaller glacier nearby in that glaciated region. So it's very difficult, but we are starting monitoring it. So we'll start monitoring by remote sensing also. So unfortunately, in last 60 years, no organization in India has developed a network of benchmark glacier, because for any natural study you have to have a benchmark, and there was no benchmark glaciers. But now recently the TERI, where I am now working, started a network of benchmark glaciers, and we have selected one glacier in the Kolhai in the Leather Valley of the Kashmir Valley, another in the Sikkim Himalaya, and the western Sikkim Himalaya is known as East Rathong Glacier, and one in the Lahore Spiti Valley in the Himachal Pradesh known as Choda Shigri Glacier. And similarly, I visited recently the Ladakh region and gone to the Zanskar Peninsula Pass, and there is a beautiful glacier known as Durung Durum, and that glacier is also an ideal glacier to be a benchmark glacier, and we are planning to have this mass balance studies from the 2010 onwards. So we'll going slowly increasing the number of benchmark glacier. So I hope that in the next 10-15 years there will be many benchmark glaciers in different climatic settings. That will give you a continuous data sets on the real-time data set. Then another way to study these glacial system is to develop the models and do study by the remote sensing satellite imageries. So the satellite imageries gives you a variation of the ice cover, and then you compute it, how much is the changing in the total ice cover, how much is the seasonal snowfall, and then you compare with the data which you are generated on the field. So you verify those models, those changes which you are doing by the satellite imageries. So that will also help to quantifying the total ice cover, and we can manage our water resources more proficiently and more intelligently as we are doing now, because we have seen recently, there is a lot of the water is coming, or discharges are increasing slowly because of the heavy melting of the ice cover. And naturally, when there is a discharge is increased, the ice mass will be decreasing, and that is happening. We have seen recently in the Kolhai Glacier, because we are measuring the mass balance, we are measuring the energy balance, how much the energy is available, and how much the total radiation, the short wave radiation, long wave radiation, similarly how much is the water is coming. That's why we put up a discharge site where the all water is coming out from the Leather Valley, western Leather Valley. Similarly, you have eastern Leather Valley. So another area which is very important from the point of view is seeing how to adopt and mitigate these problems which is happening by the global warming. So how it is the society is affected. how the livelihood of the people affected. And there are many reports in recent times that the orchards are affected. There is a change in the land use pattern. Some people are not using the paddy, and now they are converting into the orchards because it consumes less water. So that all connected impact of the climate change is visible, and that has to be studied properly. And once you study them properly, then the government will be in a better position to take some mitigation and adaptation measurement. So that is where these studies are required. And the impact is global because of this carbon dioxide and non-carbon dioxide of forcing agents. So in recent years we are started measuring the black carbon also, which is a non-carbon dioxide forcing black carbon and tropospheric ozone. So when you combine both the impacts by the carbon dioxide and by the non-carbon dioxide forcing agent, so that is going to be very high. So already IPCC has predicted that by 2020 the impact, the temperature will rise by 2.2 degrees Celsius. But already if you combine both the impacts of carbon dioxide and non-carbon dioxide forcing agent, so already we are having about 1.5 degrees Celsius increase in the temperature. So various climate models, regional models have shown that the temperature has risen in the Himalayan highland, and which is impacting the cryosphere of the region and giving more and more water. So that in totality one has to really see how much is the changes and how much the farmers are affected. So the government will have to revisit their present policies and change their adaptation measures and change and prepare the community for these changes which is happening by the climate change.
So as a scientist, are you seeing the desertification of Kashmir happening?
Not to that extent. Kashmir is still in a good shape. So it's better to keep it in that way, and there is a pollution in the Dal Lake or some other things are happening, but still the things are not that bad. So it can be further improved if some mitigation measures are taken. So one thing you have to do that the pollution level you have to reduce in the valley. So that will help in having more snowfall at the right time, and I hope it, and it will not make much adverse impact on the economy of the state.
What is your message for the people and the government to protect the glaciers and the environment?
I think we have to take it seriously, and we have to first develop the database, analyze, because if you look at the Himalaya, they have a different climatic setting. There is a difference between a Ladakh valley and even the Kashmir valley. The population is different, even the ethnic groups are different. The way they are practicing agriculture is different, and how you are doing it here in the valley, Kashmir valley, is so different. So you have to have some adaptation and the mitigation strategies and prepare the community. So the political leadership has to prepare the community for the change and start preparing them that okay, you have to have a different sowing season, you have to have a different kind of a seeds, you have to have a different kind of a plants, and so you have to adopt to the new changes. So until we adopt to the new changes, so the community will not be benefited, and it has to come from the political leadership. But these political leadership has to be provided with the scientific information and the whole database, because they cannot act without having the database. So our scientists' job is to create a database, and social scientists or the scientists, both from the social angle, from the scientific angle, and that information will help the administration to change their strategies for mitigation and adaptation.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir, for sharing that valuable information with us.
Okay, thank you very much.
So we now well know from our expert that global warming is not only actually here, but is also posing a threat to our environment. And if corrective measures are not taken, Kashmir can well lose its glaciers, which are an important source of water for the entire subcontinent. Thank you for watching.